Hello and welcome to episode 168 of Retro Encounter, RPG Fans Weekly Podcast. I'm Mike Sollosi, and today we're here for an annual tradition here at Retro Encounter, where we basically we belie the adjective in our title and talk about the most current games we can. It's our year in review episode, and I'm joined by four other Retro Encounter regulars, starting with Peter Triezenberg.
This episode of Retro Encounter has been brought to you by tap water. Good old municipal tap water.
Are you sure, man? Don't you live in Michigan?
To be fair, yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks, Peter and Tapwater. And joining Peter, Tapwater, and I is Rob Fenner.
It's me. Hello, folks. Thanks for having me.
Anytime. And joining Peter, Rob, and I is Leona McCallum.
Hi, everybody.
And rounding out our party of five is Alana Hagues.
Hi, everyone.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we have, between the five of us, played many RPGs this year. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, does 2018 seem unusually dense?
2018 has been 10 years long.
Yeah. I thought last year was, full and unmanageable, but I think we've got a new rival.
Yeah, maybe, and this is, I guess, my perception, but I thought that maybe 2017 had more sort of marquee big games that people were excited about, and 2018 started out seeming like it was going to be less, but then as the year went on, but my backlog got stupider and stupider. Like, I think, especially for the kind of games we're interested in, the RPGs and visual novels of the world, 2018 seemed unusually full and unusually good. There was a lot of really good stuff that came out this year. And I had a lot of difficulty picking my personal game of the year, but even though you probably are all assuming correctly what it is. But
what could it be?
And speaking of game of the year stuff, RPG Fan is probably going to be rolling out our game of the year content in the next few weeks. There's I believe an online vote that recently ended, and we're going to have that go out. Alana, is it in the first week of January around?
There's no set date yet. The plan is the first week or two of January. Yeah.
All right. So yeah, we cannot talk about what awards things have won in RPG Fan, because we are writing in the middle of writing the those Game of the Year sort of final pieces right now. But we cannot talk about that on the podcast. What we can talk about is all of the games we played. We're basically just going to take turns in a round table, going off of a big list of games that we've compiled here, and discuss them each in turn. Try to keep the discussion maximum 4 or 5 minutes, because otherwise we could make this a 4-hour podcast, and nobody wants that, especially me. So, do we have a volunteer to pick our first discussion topic?
Oh.
Okay. That was a excellent sound effect.
I'm having school flashbacks.
Okay, no one's gonna come up to the blackboard and
No.
write the answer down. So, I'll go first. The very first game of the year that really seized me, to the surprise of nobody, was Monster Hunter World. That game came out in the middle of January. I think around the 19th or 20th or so, and we weren't sure whether to cover it or not, but there was a number of people on the website interested in it, so we just ultimately decided to ask for a code and cover it. And I put 250 hours into that damn thing, and I mostly fell off it over the summer, so it was a very packed-in 250 hours. Do we have any other Monster Hunters in the house?
My boyfriend is playing it right now behind me.
Ah, okay. So we've got it happening on the pod.
Maybe it's obvious, but I'm a little bit invested into Monster Hunter. I started out playing the PSP games in the mid 2000s, but then stopped playing them around the Wii one because I hated the controls on Monster Hunter Tri and Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate. So I sort of skipped the third and fourth generations of Monster Hunter, but Monster Hunter World, which is, I guess, technically the first Gen 5 Monster Hunter game, if we want to sort them like Pokemon, I got real deep into. My other friends that I used to hunt with 10, 12 years ago all got it too. I played so much of it, but I stopped following it around around the spring, I didn't do many tempered hunts. I got back into it in the summer to attempt the behemoth hunt, but I've mostly fallen off it. I think I might try and get back into it in 2019 because my friends are still asking me if I have time to hunt with them, and those guys have put. I mean, I have 200 hours into it. They have probably closer to 2,000 hours into it. But it's a game that brought me back into a series that I used to love, and I think it's Capcom's most successful title ever in terms of sales, which seems insane.
It is now, yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah, Capcom's been around a while. So, Rob,
Who would have thought
yeah,
that,
I think I remember.
that
I've even
Monster Hunter
hunted.
would take off?
Yeah, exactly. And Rob, I've even hunted with you a couple times, haven't we?
Yeah, we have hunted together. And I have not dropped off this game. It has been a constant throughout my entire year. And it's been like a regular social event for me. Like I'll hang out with my friends and we'll take part in like the weekly events or the seasonal festivals. I was just hunting with a close friend for a couple of hours last night. I really can't get enough of it, and I was really surprised because Monster Hunter has never been my thing. I've always been curious, but I just like the first one I played was the PS2 version. I was like, oh no, oh no. And even playing that trial that came out, the online test from that came out around this time last year, I was like, I don't know if this is for me, but like peer pressure means I'm probably going to get this. And this is yeah, this is one of my top games of the year, undoubtedly, and I just can't get enough of it. It's extremely satisfying.
Yeah, and it's really all about that multiplayer. Like the single player is enough to introduce you to
It's fun.
to the new monsters and settings one by one, but the characters are silly and the plot is trite. It is really about getting in those group hunts. I mean, the multiplayer in Monster Hunter World is awesome. Lots of coordination, uh, uh, lots of intense gameplay, but also the world is big and beautiful and cool, and the monsters look amazing.
Yeah, yeah, they do.
Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate also came out in 2018 in most
Ah,
territories,
okay.
and the differences between those two is Generations Ultimate is a culmination of 15 years or however long of Monster Hunter. It has almost every single game from the entire series previous to World, because it like the Generations games had you revisit villages from three previous Monster Hunter games plus a fourth village, and Generations Ultimate added more monsters to Generations. So there's probably 120 damn monsters in that game, and like that. Generations Ultimate is like the final capstone on what Monster Hunter used to be, and Monster Hunter World is like the new chapter in what Monster Hunter is going to be going forward. Because we mentioned this a little bit. Monster Hunter World has so many small improvements and player friendly changes that I find it extremely difficult to go back.
Oh yeah, I'm curious about Generations Ultimate, but at the same time, as somebody who really came into the series on World, the idea of dealing with whetstones and paintballs and all that stuff just sounds like a step that I don't think I would be able to deal with.
And discrete zones with loading screens and a number of
Yeah.
other inconveniences. But in general, the thing I want to see the most from World going forward is doing what Generations Ultimate did and just bring as many cool older monsters as they can. Like
Oh.
I would love to hunt a Nargacuga and a Zenogre and a Rajang in Monster Hunter World. And Rob, none of the four of you probably know what those things are, but if they got announced for Monster Hunter World expansion or sequel, I would be extremely excited. And we just had an expansion announced a few weeks ago, Iceborne,
Yeah.
which
They're
is
saying it's going to be ultimate sized.
yeah. They're saying that it's going to be a new zone, a new story quest, new monsters, new everything. It's coming out fall of 2019, and it's probably going to be the first large paid DLC for the game because Monster Hunter World has had basically a year of free DLC that has been pretty good.
Hmm.
Starting with the Devil Joe added within a few months of launch, and then the Kulve Taroth hunts, and then the Behemoth hunts, and then arch-tempered monsters, like a pretty good suite of free DLC for Monster Hunter World over the year. But the first big pay DLC being this Iceborne new continent, which I'm excited about.
Oh yeah, I will be forking over for that as soon as I'm allowed to.
I think that's going to be the thing that drags me back into hunting again,
Yeah.
or maybe just before it comes out, I'll get back into hunting to shake the rust off. So yeah, we oh boy, Rob, we can't accidentally turn this into a Monster Hunter podcast because I did that.
We cannot.
Yeah, we did that in February of this year already. So does anyone have a non-Monster Hunter game that they'd like to discuss?
I can discuss Shibuya Scramble, which
Ooh,
is
please do. Oh shoot. Rob, did you review that or talk
I
about
did,
it?
yeah.
Yeah, that's after reading your review, I got really interested in it, but I don't know much about it. So, Leona, give us the skinny on Shibuya Scramble.
So Shibuya 428 Shibuya Scramble is a visual novel, and it's a bit different. Well, it's a bit different in the West because usually our visual novels are the ones we get from Japan are all animated, but this one's live action. So it's real actors, and it's super weird. It's like a mix between like a comedy and a mystery thriller, and it's a bit like you're playing as 5 different protagonists, and you're each going through their sort of one. It's like one day, and there's been a kidnapping, and it's so you're playing as a cop who's investigating the kidnapping. You're playing as a father, the father of one of the daughters who's been kidnapped. You're playing as like a mascot cat character who's trying to sell diet drinks. There's a journalist, and there's just like a street kid who's obsessed with recycling. But he's my favorite character. It's super interesting, and it plays sort of like each character has to do certain actions to affect what the other characters like timeline going forward. If they do something wrong in their timeline, it will affect all the other characters' timelines, and they might die, or they might have I've had endings that are bad technically, that are they become rich and live their fullest lives with their partners and have many children, but you don't solve the mystery of the game, so it's technically a bad ending.
Did you get that farming ending? Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, the farming ending.
So I'm not sure I totally understand. You basically watch these 5 characters perform actions, and you can sort of switch between whose perspective that you're on, and there's different points where the player makes decisions.
Yes, it's pretty much exactly that. So there's
yeah. No, sorry. Go ahead, Leona.
So as a full motion video game, is this game better or worse than Night Trap?
It's not FMV.
No,
it's
FMV.
photographed. They're photographs.
Oh, okay. So it's
a sound novel. It's a visual. It's like a precursor to the visual novels by Chunsoft.
is this like that Saturn game that is always at the top of Famitsu
Machi?
rankings?
This is the spiritual. This is the spiritual sequel to Machi, and it's got some shared characters.
Okay, Machi is one of those games that I've only read about, but reading about it and knowing its level of acclaim has had me infinitely curious about it for at least a decade. So this is if I'm morbidly curious about Machi, then this is something I want to try.
Shibuya Scramble was like that game for me because I read about it. It came out on the Wii like years ago in Japan, and we never got it. And I always said it was like one of the best visual novels people were saying, and I was like, I've got to try it, but it'll probably never come out here. But it did, and we all get to enjoy it now.
So, like, say for example, you're playing as a street tough, and you're trying to escape from somebody who's chasing you, and I don't know, there's these gangsters with guns running around, and you see one from behind, and you throw a rock at him and knock him out, and then your street tough gets away. And then like if you switch back to the cop, you'll find out that like actually it wasn't a gangster, and it was this cop, and he got hit from behind with a rock, and then like you get a game over there. So you have to like go back and make a different choice so that street tough won't accidentally knock out this cop. That's how these characters interact with each other.
And so the decisions like this can sort of cascade on each other because these are 5 characters acting their lives simultaneously.
Yeah.
Can you like switch between characters with a couple presses of buttons? Or
you can. You have to. It's just and on the PC you just hit F2 and then you have like a timeline of all the characters.
Each chapter is an hour, and like each scene is a 5-minute block.
Yeah.
Okay. Huh. That's crazy. I'm just trying to think of the number of possibilities and
Oh,
like.
it's a lot of possibility. It
Uh,
reminds me of have you ever seen Lola Rent or Run Lola Run, the
yeah, I have.
movie?
I have.
Mm.
Yes.
It reminds me a lot of that. It's like small little actions, and you change a certain thing, and then all of a sudden, it just is a completely different story that you're watching.
And are the
And
endings character centric or
yes,
sort of over? Okay, so
there's
it's like which character the player is with at a certain
yes,
point will put you on an ending path.
yep, exactly. There's like
Okay.
120 bad endings.
Oh yikes!
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
a. I think it's like the rarest trophy is to get all the bad endings.
That
Um,
sounds like a very lengthy game facts document.
but every time you get a bad ending, it gives you a hint on like
Yeah,
what you should do to avoid that, which
yeah,
is helpful.
Okay, but man, 120 endings, all these small decision points that the player makes. This almost seems like an exercise in trial and error.
It definitely
To
is.
sort of see what happens with all these different combinations of events. Did it get? Was there enough logic for you to find the solution to the mystery or a satisfying ending
yeah.
that it seemed fair, or did it seem like just almost too random?
Um,
'Cause I'm trying to
so
think of what parts of this game would frustrate me if I were to try and play it.
I say even if you pick the wrong choice, getting the bad ending is worth watching because they're usually quite funny.
All
So
right.
It's
it's not.
trying to ambush you and surprise you, and
Yes.
the checkpointing is it allows you to jump around this timeline as you see fit at any time. So there's not really much of a penalty.
Yeah, and if you get if you pick the wrong decision, the bad ending comes within like a couple of minutes. It's not like you're playing the entire game and then you get the bad ending. It's just a matter of you picked the wrong decision, here's why you died, or you're living your best life or whatever. And then you just go back to that point and you pick the right option.
Cool. Well, that game sounds satisfying. I'm sorry, not satisfying. I meant to say fascinating.
It is.
Especially with the connection to Machi, a game that I've only read about and have been curious about for a long time. Thanks for bringing this up. This game's 40% off PSN right now, so I'm thinking about it, but
It's worth it.
I really
It's
don't need to.
Yeah.
so amusing.
I really don't need to buy another thing in December when when I'm trying to afford gifts for my friends and family. But
Yeah, yeah.
this looks good. I'm definitely gonna put it on a wish list or something because everything you're saying about it makes it sound awesome. Um, Peter, do you have a game on the list that you like to discuss for the podcast?
Yeah, I mean, one thing, and we talked about this a little recently, but a Pokemon Let's Go came out this year. The remakes of Pokemon Yellow, the Gen 1 games for now in glorious high definition on Switch. And it's fun. It's really fun. It is a adorable, nostalgic romp through a familiar game that kind of makes I think it's like a good. It's kind of intended as like a beginner Pokemon game, kind of to like
Mhm.
bridge the gap for new players who came in off of the mobile game Pokemon Go.
Right. That's the one thing that scared me off a little bit. I'm not a fan of Pokemon Go, and I was
Mhm.
a little worried that like that this game was at like half a remake of Yellow and half bridging the gap between Pokemon Go and the console or handheld Pokemon games.
And
How much Go influence is in this game?
the main influence from Pokemon Go is catching Pokemon. So in Let's Go, there are no random encounters. Pokemon appear in the field, and you can choose which ones you bump into. You always know which Pokemon you're going to be encountering. That's a really positive change, and it's something I hope they keep going forward. Um, Once you encounter a wild Pokemon, you basically enter the capture screen from Pokemon Go, where the Pokemon's in front of you and it's moving around, and there's a little ring that slowly shrinks down, and the goal is to use the Switch's motion controls, either with the Joy-Con or the gyro sensor, in handheld mode, to throw a Pokeball and catch the Pokemon that way. So you don't actually fight wild Pokemon; it's purely catching them. And I wasn't sure how I was gonna how I was gonna like this change at first, just because, like, I mean, Pokemon's a very traditional series. It's been that way the way it is for a long time. I don't mind it. I think it's kind of fun, and like being able to physically throw a Pokeball is like 10-year-old Peter's dreams come true. So,
Being able to ride on the belly of a Snorlax lumbering around is 10-year-old Sollosi's dream come true.
I used to throw tennis balls at my sister. Does that count?
You know what? I'll allow it.
I will allow it. Yes. Yeah, being able to ride a Snorlax by holding onto its belly is good and pure. But and then the game is still a traditional Pokemon RPG. You have trainer battles; those are still intact and carried over from the original games. Although the caveat is that it is a little bit of a stripped down combat system, not in terms of like you still have all your moves and fight item, all that stuff, but passive abilities are no longer a thing, and hold items either. So, which, to be fair, I suppose that is accurate to the original Red, Blue, Yellow.
Do they have a special defense stat?
They do have special attack and special defense stats.
Okay.
And actually, one thing that Let's Go adds is you can check after a certain point in the game. You can check your Pokemon's IV stats at any time. They actually make it a very easy. Here is your Pokemon are basically ranked from okay to good to great to amazing to perfect.
Yeah, they gave you ways to check IVs in Sun Moon, but they're a little hidden. It's still it's still very deep in the arcane of what Pokemon is, dealing with IVs and to a lesser degree EVs, but not EVs like Let's Go Eevee. Speaking of which version did you play?
Pikachu. Let's Go Pikachu. I went for the nostalgia there. It was a hard choice because they're both adorable, and you have your partner. You get your partner Pokemon at the start of the game, like every other Pokemon, and it's either a Pikachu or an Eevee, depending on which version you got, and then that Pokemon is your partner for the entire game. It rides around on your shoulders or on your head. You can dress it up. You can pet it. They learn the special techniques, the what used to be HMs, which so your Pikachu will like break out a surfboard and that's how you surf, or your Pikachu will smash rocks, stuff like that.
It's weird that they don't let them evolve, but I guess it's not Let's Go Raichu.
Yeah, I think they don't let them because they want you to have that mascot, the relationship with your mascot Pokemon, and it is kind of like.
It's right there in the name. It's all about the evolution.
Yeah. Shoot, Alana, you also played this game. Did you get the Pikachu or Eevee version?
I got Pikachu as well, so I had my little mouse. Yeah, I didn't want to go for Eevee because you couldn't evolve it. I'd care less about Raichu than I do about the evolutions.
But the thing is, I was reading about the super moves that Eevee can learn, and it learns like psychic. It learns an elemental move of each of its evolution types that also gets like a bonus or something. Something like this sounds insane. This is the best move set of any Pokemon ever. The only problem is it's locked into an above average Eevee.
But Eevee is a powerhouse, and actually Pikachu gets some really good moves as well, but I took the starter out pretty quickly. I had Jolteon in instead of Pikachu because that's my real electric mouse. Yeah.
All right, that's fair. I mean, I guess but can Jolteon zippy zap is the question.
Jolteon cannot zippy zap.
Even if you take the starter out of your party, it still sticks around with your character. So it's a viable option. I kept it in there because I'm like, again, zippy zap. It's busted.
Exactly.
Do we have another game on the dock that we want to discuss for the podcast?
Sure, I'll go next because I've been a bit quiet. I'll go with Crosscode, which is probably one that nobody here has played, but I want to give a shout out to because I was really promised by it by playing the early access back in 2016, and I was like, no, I really, really want to see this do well. And it's one of those few instances where I've gone, nope, they've fulfilled everything, and I'm really happy. So Crosscode is an action RPG. It's PC Steam only, potential PS4 port in the works, maybe. But the developers are quite stretched at the moment, dealing with some post-launch things. So the idea of Crosscode is you are playing a avatar in an MMO world, and you go around, you do MMO kind of things. It's not an online game, so it's a single player RPG, kind of like East, kind of like Secret of Mana combat-y style. But yeah, there's like MMO mechanics in it. So there's like what do you call it, like gathering and things like that. So you have to destroy plants to gather materials, and then you have like a log that keeps track of them. But the main draw of Crosscode is kind of like the combat and the puzzle systems in it. So everything in Crosscode is a bit of a puzzle, and there's a similar Zelda structure in where there are elemental temples that you go to. These are really big endurance tests, and they won't suit everybody. So I think I averaged maybe an hour and a half at least on each of them. 2 hours 30 for one of them, at least, I would say. They
Yikes,
are extremely.
that is an endurance test. Around how long is the game, and how many of those big temples are in it?
The game I clocked in 40 hours, and I didn't do all the side
Oh,
quests.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's not
big.
short. It's a big game.
I mean, it was in development for. I'm just doing some side googling here. In development for 6 years. So this is you're getting your
yeah.
money's worth out of this thing.
Yeah, they're working on some DLC as well. So there was some stuff they couldn't get in that they're going to do post-launch, which is exciting. There are, I want to say,
That's wild.
five. There's 6 temples. So there's 5 elemental temples and 1 final dungeon, all in increasing difficulty. So each of these temples rewards you with an element that you can utilize in combat. So you get, these are probably not the correct names. So you get fire, ice, shock, and wave. Wave is like sound waves, but I suppose semi-water related. And each of those dungeons utilizes the opposite element. So like the ice dungeon utilizes the fire element. So you have to use that to like defrost bricks and hit balls in certain ways and things like that. But they're really clever, some of the puzzles. Some of them are kind of frustrating, and like you have to try over and over again, and a lot of them have really small win margins for error. But I think it was really refreshing to play something that had actual temples in it and actual dungeons, because there seems to be outside of maybe East games and a couple of other games, there's not really. Dungeons seem to be a weakness in RPGs, ignoring
Yeah.
Persona 5 last year.
Yeah. Well, okay. Persona 5 dungeons were a whole thing on themselves, but you're basically right. When I think of things like recently Dragon Quest or
Octopath.
or Octopath
Yeah.
or Tales games of the past
Yeah.
couple of years, dungeons are more about corridors and sort of and a sense of place, and less about mechanics and puzzles. But this is bringing back a lot of old school concepts, I guess. But an indie game with this look that's 40 hours and rich with content. This sounds incredible. What's the basics of action like? Is the running and attacking at least fun, or does it get old over those 40 hours?
No, it's really fun. So it starts off really basic. You just have an attack button. You can dodge, you can guard, and then as you get these additional elements,
That's already more than like every Super Nintendo RPG.
exactly. And then you can cross dash as well. So you can like dash across platforms and things. But again, these elements are not just puzzle related. You can use them for combat as well. So you get like charged arts. So every element has a guard charged art, an attacking charged art, a ranged charged art, and a dash charged art. And you can level those up with a skill tree, which is called a circuit board, because they're all MMO characters and
Sweet
things.
Moses.
Yeah, so it's really, really in depth, and you can also reset these skill boards a few times. You get 5 automatically to reset, because you have a basic one as well that gives you basic combos like non-elemental. There is a drawback. You can't use elements all the time, so you do overheat if you use them too much, so you need to swap out of them. It's really easy to do. You just swap out of the element and go to neutral attacking, and then it recharges, and it doesn't take very long either. But yeah, you have like essentially over 30 charged attacks if you want to take in every element and every neutral.
Can you switch elements on the fly, or do you equip them in a separate menu?
No, you can switch them on the fly using the D-pad on the Xbox controller is what I used, but if you're using a mouse, you can use the wheel. So yeah.
This has more moves than like any Devil May Cry game. I'm floored with this description.
It's really, really in depth, and I was starting to get weary about midway through, but things really pick up, and the more elements you get, the more fun you can have with it. And like I say, even like boss fights are a puzzle as well. So like you have to use the opposite element, and then you have to use a guard art to reflect, and you can stun enemies. Like some enemies you can't even beat unless you stun them. Some of them you can't beat unless you beat other enemies on the screen. Like it's just a lot has gone into it, and I think props to the developers because I was kind of expecting to be disappointed, and I wasn't, and it kept getting better and better. Like I was frustrated at times, but yeah, it was a joy. It was an absolute joy to play through. I loved it.
It looks like a lot of time and effort and love went into this game, and your description of its breadth and depth is frankly a little shocking for an indie RPG. This looks awesome. And,
Well,
and
I mean,
the main characters look like they popped out of a Fantasy Star like Fantasy Star universe or something.
yeah, they all have really
You
unique
do.
personalities, which is cool. Like the main character's mute, but it's because she's like there's a problem with her avatar, so she's lost her speech function. Um,
They explained away the silence of the silent protagonist.
yeah, basically, but there's like a hacker, I'll
I love
say it in
I,
inverted
I
commas.
love it when games do stuff like that.
There's someone working behind the scenes to give her speech function, so every now and again she'll learn like a new word. So she starts off by just saying hi and bye and her name, and then she gets other things as well. But
Gee, Alana, thanks. Now I have another game to add to my wish list and pile of unplayed things in 2018.
well, I mean, I've already got
Hmm.
428 should be a scramble, so how many
Me
more can I
too.
have on my list?
Okay. Oh, great.
We play too many good games on Retro Encounter. Let's talk about a bad game.
Oh God, you want a bad game?
Well, I want to actually pick your brain about something, Alana.
Oh no.
Because you're the only one I know here who played the new Dissidia.
Ah,
So,
oh
so,
yeah.
talk to me about how Square tried to make an esport game and failed
Oh.
They
miserably.
tried to turn Dissidia into like Marvel vs. Capcom 3, and then they brought in Team Ninja and tried to make it esports, and somehow none of it came together. But
It's
at least Locke looks hot. I mean, right?
Yeah, exactly.
He's a
Lots of
handsome,
fun.
handsome Locke.
They've been supporting it. Like they had the Yuna just joined the game like yesterday, 2 days ago. Like that, as of this recording, like so at the very
Mhm.
least they are offering new content. It's not like they've abandoned the game,
I think
but
we'll know the last DLC character by the time the episode goes live because I think
Oh,
they have a
okay.
live stream on the 18th. But
Are they
yeah,
still supporting it?
yeah, there's one more DLC character to announce.
Oh, I hadn't
Yeah.
realized
Oh
that.
no, is it Joker from Persona 5? Wait, wrong DLC.
you'll never see it coming.
Hi. Um,
Quick aside before we go back into the Dissidia discussion. How about this year for crossover DLC? Holy crap!
Jeez, yeah.
I'm just gonna rattle a couple off. We have Joker from Persona 5 in Smash Bros. Ultimate. We have 2B from Nier Automata in Soul Calibur 6. We have Final Fantasy 14 and Monster Hunter World putting monsters in each other's games in my favorite crossover of all time. Like it is. Oh shoot, who was the most recent entry into Tekken 7?
Well, Negan
Negan.
was.
Yeah, Negan from The Walking
guy-
Dead in Tekken 7.
yeah.
That's just weird. I mean, I thought that Akuma and Geese were perfect in that game, but then Noctis and
Oh,
Negan are a bit more head scratching.
I could have Noctis fight Jeffrey Dean Morgan, and I'm really okay with that. Honestly,
Yeah.
You have no idea how excited I was watching that Geese trailer in 2017 for the first time. Okay, maybe you have some idea, but like tears came to my eyes watching the bad dads fight each other. It was excellent. Right. So anyway, back to Dissidia.
back to things that are bad.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I played a Dissidia NT demo at E3 2017, and
Oh,
I was confused and disappointed, and I think that confusion and disappointment sort of held over onto the main release, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah. Very much so. I haven't touched it since I reviewed it, so that tells you something.
Aha.
Yeah. I was almost tempted to go back when Locke went in because I was like, oh yeah. But then I was like, I do have the DLC because it came with the review copy. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I was gonna say you didn't fork over like $25 for that. Good.
No, I didn't. But I think what's disappointing because Derek also reviewed this for CGM. Both of us are big fans of Dissidia on the PSP. Like they're complete nonsense, and I think it's fair to say, Peter, I know you've tried them and don't like them. Is that correct?
I just couldn't get a handle on them. Like I thought the controls were really floaty, and I wasn't like I couldn't get into it. I like the idea. I love the idea.
I really really liked the Dissidia games on PSP.
Yeah.
I didn't play through all of Duodecim, but the loop of that really weird sort of like 3D space combat with turn-based elements and a lot of weird attacks, but characters that feel unique. I thought it was really cool Final Fantasy fan service and
Yeah.
Final Fantasy RPG fighting games, three things I love. Obviously, I put some hard time into that.
I will say that Dissidia Duodecim is one of the best Final Fantasy remix albums I've ever listened to.
Yeah, the remix music is really good on it. I like the version of Over Those Hills in Dissidia more than the FF9 version. So sorry, Alana, that's a little sacrilegious.
It's fine. I'm not precious about 9 soundtrack.
Well, it's like how literally any version of Blue Fields sounds better than the Blue Fields that plays in FF8. Like,
right.
Yeah, for as good as the music in FF7 and FF8 is, the that like MIDI soundscape that they live in is not great. So it's like, why do these fake clarinets sound like bees buzzing? But
twang, 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 twang.
We can talk about MIDI music later if you want. Like,
oh,
For soundtrack of the year.
Yeah.
that sounds like a different podcast. But anyway, how much more Dissidia talk do we have in us before we just get a little sad?
I would say avoid it. It's extremely floaty. There's barely any single player content. The online modes are good. It takes a lot of getting used to, and also the 3-on-3 is rubbish. So yeah.
I don't know why they went 3-on-3. I don't think it like some fighting games are team games and some aren't, and some of them like are fake team games like King of Fighters where you pick 3 characters but it's all 1-on-1 anyway. But I mean the team gameplay seems to add to the confusion and not add to the fun when I played the demo. And
That's exactly what it is.
and the characters were deep enough and varied enough, and the roster was large enough in the original Dissidia that I never felt limited by the 1-on-1 fights.
The stages are so big as well, and then there's all the summons that can happen as well, and some stages have stage hazards as well, so it's like there's so much going on at any one time that it's just you just completely lose track of everything. And when then it being 3-on-3, it's like, oh, okay, if one of your team dies 3 times, you lose. It doesn't have to be everyone dies once. If one of your team is not very good and they die 3 times, then that's it, which is punishing for the team. Then punishing for you, but also punishing for them, because it's then you get some unsavory people who are like, oh, you're rubbish, and it's like, well, you know what, I don't
Unsavory
care.
people playing video games online? Never.
I know, right? Crazy.
All right, well, want to switch it up and talk about a good game next? Does anybody have a suggestion? I have the suggestion that is, in my opinion, maybe the goodest game of the year, in fact.
I was wondering how long it would take to get to it.
Hey,
Metal Max. Cool.
I had to hold back a little bit. Dragon Quest XI came out in 2018 in every territory other than Japan, and I liked it a lot. It consumed my. I had to start it a little late because I had a podcast a game that I was working on in early September, but when I finally got around to Dragon Quest XI, it completely consumed me. I beat it with a platinum trophy, which is not a terribly challenging platinum trophy, which is good for my physical and mental well-being, but it's extremely beautiful. The Toriyama designs have never looked better. The monsters have never looked more expressive. The story is, in a way, very traditional JRPG, but also a little tiny bit subversive, because like you go to in the first hour of the game, you learn you're the chosen one. You go to meet the king of the good kingdom, and the king says, "Hey, if the chosen one always comes to fight the demons, how do we know the chosen one doesn't cause the demons?" It's like, well, just because you only see umbrellas out in the rain does not mean that umbrellas cause rain. But then he does not appreciate that argument and throws you in the dungeon, and then the story really gets going. Dragon Quest XI is a very traditional JRPG, very traditional Dragon Quest game, but is beautiful and cool, and with enough new stuff that I loved all of it. Like the skill trees work great. The group attacks, which are called pep powers, are really fun to pull off. Oh shoot! You can ride around on your horse, and there's visual encounters in the field, not random ones, and you can just run through ones on your horse if you don't want to deal with them.
I did so much of that. It was
Yeah.
so fun.
You
Uh,
knock them and they go flying.
You can knock bears over.
uh,
Bears.
you,
I was a
you,
little nonplussed
if it's
when I
bigger
first
than
started playing and I needed to level grind and I was like, I'm just gonna run into this with my horse, and then they just like went flying and died, and I was like, oh, that's not gonna get me any experience,
No,
but
it
it's
doesn't.
very amusing to watch.
Not
if they're
like a
if they're
fun.
if they're bigger than you on your horse, then you can't run them over. So like big dragons and trolls, I don't think can be knocked over for the most part. But man, that game is so much fun, and I played so much of it, and I love the 8 main characters, and I love this game so much. So, does anyone else have Dragon Quest thoughts before I just speak for another 45 minutes straight?
Like, I
It's great. It's very much like Dragon Quest 8 2, which is my yeah, I guess that's my favorite type of Dragon Quest. I know it won't appeal to everybody, but I like those strong personalities that we rarely get in favor of like a lighter touch.
Yeah, that's pretty much my take on it. I'm also part of the Dragon Quest XI Platinum Club.
Yeah!
Wow. Hey.
Oh yeah, I know. Surprise. Yeah, I loved it. It basically consumed my entire October.
We are going to have a dedicated Dragon Quest XI spoiler cast, I think next week, if scheduling holds up. So we're going to have many more Dragon Quest XI thoughts on that episode, but it was probably my favorite RPG of the year. I'm waffling between that, Monster Hunter, and one other game. But I man, like if you like Dragon Quest 8 and want another game like that, then this is exactly that. Or if you're maybe Dragon Quest curious, but think that it's a little too that other Dragon Quest games are maybe a little bit too antiquated, this one it feels the newest and freshest of any Dragon Quest game. But
Yeah.
it's still turn-based combat. You're still I don't want to
It's
say
the perfect starting point, isn't it? Really,
Yeah,
it's
it
just a
is.
nice
Yeah.
place to go. Like even more so than 8, I would say. But they kind of play off each other really nicely. And I would recommend it, especially if you've never played something turn-based from traditional. I feel like rather than going back to something like Final Fantasy 1 or something, then Dragon Quest 11 is probably the most modern traditional turn-based RPG you can pick up. Most accessible as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's excellent. I don't want to hammer the point over and over, but if you're interested in turn-based combat, Japanese RPGs, and you're not turned off by Toriyama designs, I think it's absolutely a must-play game. And it's long, but didn't feel over long to me. Like
No.
Yeah, it's really well
I
paced.
mean, because like 7 is like 120 hours, and that's
the
a tall
PS1
order.
version is the 3DS version cuts that almost in half, but
I've still got about 100 hours on that.
Yeah, 7 is a little overlong. 11, like, I ended up putting I think just over 100 hours into it. I did almost everything you could do, and at around 105 hours, I wasn't sick of it yet.
They need to lose Sugiyama like yesterday.
He's so bad.
Right.
It's a little sad to say that my favorite song in Dragon Quest XI is a remix of a Dragon Quest V song in one of the towns.
I know what you mean as well. Yeah,
a lot
that's like
of,
what I like.
A lot of reused music in this one, and
A
I
lot
mean
of
it's all
reused music, and
but-
also it's not a very vast soundtrack, so it'll be the
Ooh.
same world map music and the same battle music for everything in the game. And in a decision I thought was a little puzzling, there's some really cool cutscenes in this game, just cutscenes with a lot of action and drama. But for most of them, the background soundtrack will keep playing during the cutscene.
I think
So it's like why is this bad world map tune happening in this dramatic fight scene between the hero and Hendrik?
I was very much looking forward to this game, and I'm very keen on it. I think it is absolutely one of the best RPGs of the year. However, like I think part of what's making me not spend as much time with it as I would have is the soundtrack.
I listen
like
to
this-
so many podcasts playing Dragon Quest XI. So
I might do
large
that.
number.
But it's like, here's a town that's like Northern Africa. Here's a town that's like Venice. Here's a port town. Here's a kingdom, and they all have the same music. And it's
Yeah.
like, it really takes me out of it. It's bad music.
Yeah, damn. But enough Dragon Quest talk. Let's talk about another game that came out in 2018 and has turn-based combat, but excellent music instead.
Oh
You
yeah,
know where I'm going with this?
Octopath Traveler.
Damn straight.
Hey,
Still have to play it. It's on my shelf.
I played it, yeah.
I only played the beginning of this. I played through one of the 8 starting
Oh, really?
chapters, but I got sidetracked by a lot of things over the summer. And then Dragon Quest XI happened, and it was game over. But but Octopath is, I would say, 16-bit inspired because it's sprite work and no 3D except for some effects, but fairly traditional turn-based combat, but really goes beyond its 16-bit influences. Did anyone here finish it through?
I did. Not post game though. So I've done all 8 quests, all 4 quests for all 8 characters, but haven't
That
really.
still sounds like a lot, because if you do all that you're pushing 60, 70 hours.
I'm on 65 hours. Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
that was a better guess than I thought originally. But all right, so what do you think were some of the strengths of Octopath Traveler? Because it's really popular among our RPG fan audience. Octopath stuff always did amazing on social.
Yeah, it did. So we've already mentioned the music. I think the music and the visuals are the 2 strongest points of the game, which seems a bit obvious, but the style of it feels
So
very
pretty.
It's so picture book, isn't it? So like I think the special edition comes with the diorama, doesn't it? That looks like one of those.
It comes with
Yeah. No, it comes with
Pop
a
out
it,
for
it
each
comes
of
with
the
a
8 characters.
yeah, it comes with a book that you can open like a pop-up
That's
book.
right.
And
Exactly.
I have that special edition, which is maybe all the more embarrassing that I've only sunk about 2 hours in. It's on my list of 2019 targets for sure, though.
So yeah, those 2 work really well together. I mean, for a debut soundtrack, Nishiki's work is incredible. Like it's so varied. There's so many different instruments used. It's really incredible. And I think the combat. Hey,
Nishiki, you want to do the soundtrack for Dragon Quest 12? Because
yeah,
I would have no objections.
this is my suggestion. And then there's the combat as well, which we've already touched on. So it is traditionally turn-based. But there is 2 things that make it really interesting. The first one is it's the boost system. So every character gets a boost meter. It goes up by 1 every turn, and you can use up to 4 boosts at a time, and it changes how many times they attack or how strong their special attack is or anything like that. And you basically need that to really push through most boss fights. You need to use it all the time because it speeds up combat. It just makes it really fun, really varied. You can also use it for support skills as well. So if you use it for like a buff, it will increase the number of turns it's active for or something like that. But yeah,
I always used it on Prim's dances, the random dance. It's because I like rolling the slots every battle to see if she's just gonna murder my entire party or if I'm just gonna level up 10 levels.
yeah, if you're going to do it, go hard or go home, really. Like, it's going to be on turn 4.
I normally hate super random attacks in RPGs and avoid gambling characters sometimes because of that. But with her, the effects are so crazy and the rewards seem so good that I think that's the way to do it. To like Alana said, just go big or go home when it comes to gambling or randomness attacks in RPGs. But I think this is not developed by the same team as the Bravely games, but it had some of the same Square producers behind them. So I think that's like the turn manipulation feels like a continuation of the Bravely games, which are games I am obsessed with to a degree.
Yeah.
And also the ideas of these different classes and character synergy and all the insane number of combinations you can do is also a little bit Bravely-esque. But these are all compliments. Like the depth of the turn-based combat in this game and the potentials of the different class systems and class-specific skills seem insane, a little bit overwhelming even.
Yeah, like everything works with everything almost. I could never get into the Bravely series, and I was really worried I wouldn't be able to get into Octopath. But I think the kind of condensed nature of it. So there's 8 characters, 8 classes, 12 subclasses. There's 4 once you get to chapter 4 of everybody's stories. It kind of makes it really manageable, and that's something I really appreciate. The nice thing as well is every class has got sub skills, and you can learn them on every character as you level up. The class will get more character points or skill points,
and eventually you can subclass every character. So every character,
Exactly.
so every character can use many of the skills of another class. And with 8 characters, 8 classes, plus a handful of extra classes, I mean, holy smoke.
Yeah,
I liked
exactly.
making Ulbrich into like a subclass cleric, so he was kind of like a paladin figure, this heavy knight with healing skills.
Yeah, I had him as an
Like a Final
apothecary.
Fantasy 1 knight.
Yeah, I had him as an apothecary because he could just like the apothecary class is surprisingly sturdy, so it just made old brick like this big brick wall, and it's like
Mm.
you can heal occasionally and do a
You
lot
could
of
throw out
damage.
this ridiculous bombs that you just mix on the fly and do like super damage.
Yeah, Alfin is concealing a lot of things in that little bag of his.
Yeah.
Extraordinarily dangerous. But yeah, it was just a really. I think it gets a bit of flack for maybe rightly its story and its pacing and its structure. I personally really like the way it's split into 8 stories, and maybe controversially, I really like Alfin and Tressa's paths because they're so small scale. Like they're not like
I like a
Primrose's
small scale
story.
path, yeah.
Exactly. Primrose's story is about revenge, and I have separate issues about Primrose's story that I won't go into here. But
That's a weird
like
story.
the weird story. Yep.
It feels like a totally different tone from the rest of the game, Prim's
Yeah,
story.
it does.
Prim
It's
and
like
Therians
so
do.
weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like Alfin and Tressa in particular, because they're like trying to perfect their craft basically. One is a merchant, one is an apothecary.
I kind of liked. I only played one, but Cyrus's main story about being
Of course you pick Cyrus first.
Of course I would. Yeah, I identify
I
with him a
almost
little
did.
bit. But like him just dealing with sort of politics of at a university and with him also sort of being clueless to his own surroundings. It felt a little different from a traditional RPG origin story, and I kind of like how these stories are separate but come together, kind of like a few old Saga games, or maybe Dragon Quest IV, or maybe even
Kind of.
Seiken Densetsu 3.
There's a very small link, and you really have to pay attention to pick up on it on some of them.
Really?
Yeah, so I think it pops up on most people's chapter 4, but the
This is what I was
post.
going to ask you next. Yeah.
So these don't.
I've only done everybody's chapter 2.
Okay.
So
yeah,
these don't converge very cleanly. They sort of stay parallel.
Yeah, so they're pretty parallel. The weird thing about Octopath is that the characters don't really acknowledge that the other characters are there in their story.
Yeah.
They have little vignettes outside of it, like skits from Tales games, I suppose. But yeah, like there's one scene that's really jarring in that I think it's either Tressa or Ophelia. She runs up to a group of people, and this group of people are like, "Oh, so you're really foolish to come here on your own," and then you go straight into a fight, and it's like.
No, I have
there's
7
4
people
of
with
us.
me.
Exactly. But
That seems strange to me, and this was a complaint that I read about in Octopath Traveler. Like when I think of games with cool casts, I think part of what I think enhances my enjoyment of the cast is the character interactions. So for I don't know, in an old school RPG, it would be their how they interact in story scenes. In games like your Dragon Ages and Mass Effects of the world, it's the party banter. But this game doesn't seem to have. There's almost no character interaction or party banter outside of these skits, I suppose, until the last 10% of the game, which seems weird, especially since this game nails so many other parts of the JRPG checklist of things Sollosi loves.
Like, I'd argue that there's not even really any like memorable NPC movers and shakers.
No.
And the side quests that you do are very much like they're not saga style. They're very much like the MMO. Go out and find this item and bring it back.
Yeah, they utilize character specific skills, but that's about it really.
It feels a little. It's a little undercooked for me in places, as much as I do really like
Yeah.
it.
No, I agree with that. I kind of love it, adored it. But yeah, there's definitely some things that need work on.
So that's Octopath Traveler, a really popular game among our audience. I thought it was super cool, but unfortunately fell off it. Do we have anything else from the list that we want to discuss next? Because there's 0% chance we polish all these off.
Am I the only person who's played Unavowed?
I have no idea what that is.
No,
You
me neither.
possibly are. It's the Watch It Eye game, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah, it's the
Yeah,
latest.
I'm
it's the
curious
latest
about
Watch It
this.
Eye. Yeah, they did Gemini Rue. They did Actually, I don't know if they did do Techno Babylon. I think they just published that, but they publish and develop games, and Unavowed is the latest from them, which is it's this kind of like it's got like a little bit of a World of Darkness setting going on. The tabletop campaign, where it when the game opens, you are in the midst of being exorcised, and a demon is leaving your body by this lady who's a djinn and her partner who's this fire mage. And apparently, like, you've spent the past 6 months just like running havoc all over New York City, manipulating people and using these demonic powers, but it wasn't your fault. And you get brought into this agency called the Unavowed, of these hidden people with magical powers who keep chaos at bay and function as kind of like a supernatural detective agency. And each of the chapters is split into like a different supernatural incident, and you select like what members of the Unavowed you want to take with you, and that determines how you solve puzzles.
Oh wow,
This sounds almost like the inverse of another game on this list that I'll talk about in a little bit. But that's a really crazy way to implement sort of different puzzle solving techniques instead of having just a big bag of items that may or may not be used up once you implement them.
Yeah, so like the djinn may excel in situations that require strength, while the fire mage can. One of his abilities is that like he can read any text that has been burned. So if somebody's trying to cover their tracks by like burning notes, he can read them in this flame realm. Or you can bring along like a spirit medium who will talk to the dead and try and shed some more light on the situation. It's there's a lot of possibilities. It's a giant script with many diverging paths and lots of voice acting. And while I'm only maybe halfway through it, I really, really like what it's doing, and it really does feel like an adventure game setting of like a magical realism tabletop session.
they're so good at that. They're so good at capturing that, but also
Mm.
not making it too convoluted like some of LucasArts' older games, maybe.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's super friendly, and I think it's more about getting you through the experience rather than because like I tried to play Day of the Tentacle recently with my partner, and uh that game has some. It is like if you did not have a hint book.
I mean,
A
if
lot
you
of
go
those
back and
puzzles just
listen to
don't make sense.
yeah, if you go back and listen to us fumble our way through Grim Fandango, I think you maybe
Yep,
Yeah,
that would
same issue
say
there.
yeah, those podcast episodes from I believe August of 2017. But I think games like what Watch Eye does, and maybe to a lesser degree, games like Broken Age. These are developers that really love that era of adventure games, but in
Hmm.
recreating games like that, are applying more modern design sensibilities and
Yeah,
making them feel more accessible, and while
they're
keeping
not
to
replicating; they're evolving.
they're not replicating, they're evolving, and they're trying to preserve the strengths of that kind of game.
Yeah, it's frequently very funny too. I really like its sense of humor. Like there's this one bit where um, there's a friendly poltergeist trying to communicate with you to like get into this building and solve this mystery that's happened there. So it's like writing on the window and condensation, and it's like it's just like writing out, come on, grab that brick, break this window. And if you, the protagonist, pick the brick up and try to hurl it, you just like you don't have that much upper arm strength, so you just like limply throw it and it just falls back down, and then you just see like a giant OMG written on the window.
Oh, I like that.
It's really funny.
But you have to switch.
Um,
You have to switch to the genie to throw the rock.
that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a really cute game. We don't have a review up at the moment, but
Now, okay, that does sound cool. I am interested in it now. I might have to add that to my Steam wish list. We'll see. But
Hmm.
I'm going to switch to a different game that also has fire mages and character switching. And it also doesn't have a review on the site because I've been taking my sweet time playing it. Shadows Awakening is a game made by a Slovenian developer that is an isometric RPG that's a little like Diablo or Divinity Original Sin. But it has the weird mechanic. Instead of being exorcised from a demon at the beginning, you are willingly summoning a demon at the very beginning. use a mysterious mage, who's voiced by an old Doctor Who actor, summons a demon, and this demon is called a Devourer and has the power to devour the souls of fallen warriors. And by doing that, he will use those the bodies of those warriors like puppets in the mortal realm, and so you'll control these characters just like they're RPG characters, but you can switch between who the puppet is using the demon's power. So you you recruit characters by devouring their souls, and then equip them like loadouts and switch between them on the fly like you're playing Trine or something. I don't know. It's it's the story gets pretty cool. Like it's a big world that they've created here. There's a conspiracy of mages that have summoned other Devourer demons and they've used the Devourer demon powers to like put imposter royalty on the thrones of various nations. And you're trying to upend the conspiracy. It's a cool. It has a lot of cool RPG stuff going on, and the character switching, it's pretty crazy with situations like one character throws an oil grenade, switch to the fire mage, they set everything ablaze with all the enemies' fire resistance reduced, and the diversity of characters gets crazy. There's a big zombie golem that you get early on. You choose between a barbarian, a rogue, an archer, and a fire mage at the very beginning. There's a giant wasp that you can recruit when you with a quest where there's basically a tree that's consumed with the that has a hive of wasps that's threatening the tree's health, and then you can sort of choose to side with the wasps or side with the tree, and depending on who you side with, you either kill like a wasp warrior and get him as on your party, or you destroy the tree and you get a like dryad spirit in your party. It gets pretty crazy, and I like a lot of what's going on with it. And there's it gets weird because the people you recruit normally do not like having their souls manipulated by a Devourer demon, so they'll argue with you and complain when you make them do things, and they'll even argue with each other since their souls are basically inhabiting the same body. And some characters that knew each other in life do not appreciate being trapped in the same body in death. So it takes a very unusual tack with a lot of RPG stuff, and I'm liking it a lot. But the problem is, it's just this game just sort of lacks polish a little bit. Like it is definitely inspired by Diablo and Sacred, and probably MOBA games that have large casts of characters, but it's a little janky. The textures aren't great. It kind of looks like a game maybe from several years ago, even though you can get it on PS4. And it's also
so it's a Diablo-esque action RPG.
It's a Diablo-esque action RPG with elements of like I don't know, like old Eternity action games.
Interesting.
There's more storytelling than in a Diablo game, and more world interaction. But it does not have the polish or the intense action of a Diablo game, and does not have the amazing script of those those old BioWare action games. But it's super fun and does a couple unique things that I really, really like. So I hopefully will finish it soon. The problem is there's just too many games and not enough time. And it's called Shadows Awakening. But what else do we have on the list that we want to discuss?
I can talk about a game that wasn't well reviewed for the site, but I quite liked. And that was Atelier Lydian Swell, The Alchemist of the Mysterious Paintings.
Okay, quick question. Do you jump into paintings like Mario 64?
You do, yes. That's exactly.
Okay, all right.
Whoa.
The sequel to Portrait of Ruin that I never knew I always wanted.
I think was it Derek who reviewed it for the site? I don't think he was very keen on
Derek has probably reviewed 53 Atelier games over the
years. And I think that may be the problem as to why he didn't like it.
Well, he made a supercut of some of the most egregious voice acting in this title, which is kind of ear-searing.
Yeah, the two sisters had some very annoying voice acting choices to make them sound, in quotation marks, I'm doing air quotation marks, cute. but it just turned out to be kind of annoying. But I always feel like Atelier game protagonists always are kind of annoying. They're all very vapid, but I think when you just have to be in the right mood for an Atelier game. At least I do, and I think maybe just Derek wasn't in the mood for the sort of
They're
vapidness of the Atelier protagonists at that time.
Well, they're always very cute and very pastel colored,
Mhm.
and always have some implementation of crafting or synthesis in the gameplay. But I've only played like 1.5 Atelier games, and
Which one?
I played Atelier Iris Eternal Mana, and then
Okay.
I
That's the
started
outlier.
yeah, and then I
Yeah.
started one of the PS3 ones, but didn't get very far. I was borrowing it from a friend.
Okay, so see the PS2 games are so different from what the Atelier games are right now.
Yeah, they
Okay.
are.
They're very more like I feel like the PS2 games are trying to bring more traditional JRPG mechanics to Atelier, but
Yeah.
since the PS3 onwards, it's gone kind of back to its roots as what Atelier Violet and all that were in Marie, and it's
Kind of feels like those PS2 games were like almost them testing the waters for a worldwide push.
yeah, it was like
Yeah.
to be more inclusive of like like everyone could find something like. And I really love the PS2 games. I think it probably is my favorite era of Atelier, and I wish they would kind of go back to that a little bit, at least just for like maybe one trilogy or
And
something.
this series started out on the PS1, but the first one we got was Iris Eternal Mana, I think.
That's
Was
right.
it the PS1? Yeah. I think the first like Atelier game I ever played was Annie, and I think I just picked that. So that's a DS game, and it's
I've
like
got a real soft spot for Annie.
I like Annie a lot,
It's
and
cool.
she's the best protagonist I think of any of the Atelier games. I really like Annie,
Mhm.
but no, I like Lydia and Soel as well. I think the whole concept of jumping into the paintings and it allows for more interesting set pieces. You know, in the previous games, maybe just like you're just kind of going through another field, another desert or something like this, but like they can really let their imagination go wild when you're literally jumping into a painting and you're like it's a Halloween painting and there's little pumpkins flying around and that's cute, and or you're going to like a ruined like underwater sea temple which is also and there's little fish and swimming about and that's fun. So it really is more interesting to look at, and I really like what the Mysterious trilogy kind of done because it was like they were doing something different in each game. And I think Sophie was like the most traditional, but then Ferris was kind of like an open world Atelier. You just really just wandered through the world with no real goal, and then eventually you'd hit an end. And a lot of people didn't like that, but I really liked it. And this one is all about jumping into paintings, and that's a lot of fun.
Cool. And again, admittedly, I am not very aware of the development arc or the story arc of the Atelier games, but I just it's one of those things like I've probably said this before, but kind of like dot hack games in the 2000s, there seemed to be like a new one every 3 months, and I was just and I was just overwhelmed. Like, wait, is this the same one that I saw here a few weeks ago?
They
I
are.
felt,
They're the annual JRPG now. They've taken Tales over as the like annualized RPG series.
They've
I feel like
been annualized for probably over a decade, unless I'm really overestimating it.
Maybe 5-6 years, I would say. But yeah, there's been one every year at least since I've been here.
So, what else do we have on the list that we want to discuss?
I kind of wanted to talk a little, just a real quick on Darksiders 3 because I'm playing that for review as of this recording.
Peter, you normally
hearing
have
mixed things from
Fury, but this time you're controlling Fury.
Yes, indeed. The third horseman of the apocalypse is a lady named Fury, and she's awesome. She's legitimately one of the things about this game that I'm going to be like 100% positive on. She's great. I'm a big fan of the Darksiders games. I love the first one, and I really liked the second one.
You have recorded 3 podcast episodes on them.
And so when the THQ and Vigil Games went under, it's like, well, it's sad to see. Kind of wished that we would have gotten the third game. And then THQ Nordic picked up the rights, and they made a new studio with a bunch of the old developers. And the result is, it's not terrible. It's just a weird step back for the series, and it's also really, really technically not optimized at all.
THQ Nordic seemed to be doing this kind of like Bloomhouse model, or like kind of Furyu, where they're bringing back uh older franchises, and like not like
Or maybe
they seem to be
even
like hedging
buying
their
up,
bets.
like buying up old IPs or even old developers and trying to see if they can recreate or finally release dead or dying projects. It because
Mhm.
from what you're saying,
To
Peter,
varying degrees of success.
like
Yeah.
this game seemed to be hastily made.
It really does, because like there are good ideas in this game. So like the first two Darksiders games were Zelda clones. Like you explored an overworld, you solved puzzles with items you got. There were dungeons, bosses that relied on using the item you found in that dungeon. And so the series is always kind of cribbed on other games. Darksiders 2 added this like Diablo loot system that I thought was really engaging. And Darksiders 3 goes for a bit more of a Dark Souls approach. And I know that's kind of a hackneyed comparison to make in the year of our Lord 2018, but it's a third person action adventure game where you fight enemies, get souls for killing them, and when you die, you leave your items behind, and then you go back to a checkpoint that is also your level up screen, and have to backtrack to get back to where you died and retrieve your items.
That doesn't really sound like what people want from Darksiders.
No, it's not, and honestly, and this is one of the things I'm going to be talking about more when I finish it and review it. The core combat feels good in Darksiders 3. Like Fury fights with a whip, and it feels very satisfying. Your moves have a lot of weight and impact, and you can do the scorpion get over here thing, which is awesome. And the encounter design is like the old Darksiders games, where they tend to put you in a room with tons of enemies, but it's now a Soulsborne clone, so these enemies do a crap ton of damage, and you're surrounded on all sides. You have a dodge that gives you, if you dodge at the last second, it gives you like the Bayonetta or Nier Automata slow down counterattack thing, which is like the key of the combat system. But said dodge also has no iframes, and you can't break from the attack animation. And and you're fighting 6 enemies, and it's Dark Souls, so they're going to take a third of your health with every hit, and they can interrupt your combo, and you die a lot because it's for reasons that are not your fault. Like, this is honestly one of the few games where I would straight up say, if you're a Darksiders fan and you must play this, I understand. I'm glad to see this IP back in some form, but play the lowest difficulty, the story difficulty is about on par with Darksiders 2's normal difficulty, and it's a way better experience.
Jeez.
And then you still have to contend with the fact that there's tons of slowdown. Like, anytime there are multiple enemies on screen, the game just starts to chug. Last night I had the skybox vanish on me, and then items started flickering. Literally, the skybox literally disappeared. The whole game went like the lighting went off, so every texture was like super bland, and items started flickering in and out of existence for like a solid like 10-15 seconds. There was a boss fight against Lust, where you're fighting the 7 deadly sins in this game.
So this is Persona 5 and Dark Souls.
Indeed, and Full Metal Alchemist too.
Oh my.
I was thinking that.
But and during the cutscene, every time the camera pans back to Lust, it takes another half second for her. It takes another half second for her textures to load in, so you can see like the rest of her model.
See it all.
It is so bad. It's a bummer, and there's, like I said, there's good stuff to be had in here, but
like, it's not the first example of IPs being brought back this year and being having technical difficulties. Like, to segue very slightly into the Secret of Mana remake, that game crashed on me 25 times in 25 hours.
Wow.
So,
goody.
So it's not like the only example, and it's really sad because it's just like they want to give something to you, which is great. Like, Darksiders some of the cool bits sound really cool. Like, I love the Metroid style stuff. Dark Souls mechanics will work if they work, but when you're doing it in the wrong frame and not giving it the love and attention it deserves, then for sure you're going to annoy some people and definitely not get what you want out of it. And it sounds like that's exactly what's happened here, really.
Yeah.
That's probably enough about Darksiders 3. What else do we have on this list? Because we're starting to run out of time here.
I'll go with the one I want to discuss first because we've already had a Metroid, so I'll have a segue. Time Spinner.
Oh yeah, that game
Yeah.
might be at the top of my list of 2018 games I wish I had played because everything about this seems just so dope.
Yeah, it's delightful. Picked it up after Derek's glowing review, and I think Fenner, you were playing it as well, and I just couldn't really resist
Oh,
it
yeah.
anymore. Yeah, it is wonderful. So it is through and through Metroidvania. It is very much Castlevania, Symphony of the Night / Order of Ecclesia. I have no problems with it at all because if you do Metroidvania right, then you do it right, and it's really easy to get wrong, but it's also once you get it right, it's like a real sweet spot. And Time Spinner really has that. So story-wise, you are Linnaeus, who is the timekeeper, I think they call them. She has the power to control the time spinner, and some empire comes along, destroys it, and kills her mother while she's using it. And so her mother sends her back, or she thinks she sends her back into time, but she ends up on another planet where the empire are from, and you have the ability to swap between two time periods, which is the empire in the present day and the empire in the past. They have two separate maps. They're fairly similar, but there are some differences, visual and structural. But the main draw of Time Spinner is its orb system. So rather than having weapons, Linnaeus can equip two elemental orbs. They can be two of the same element, or they can be one different ones. So you can have like a fire one and a sword one on, or you can have an axe one and a sword one, or you can have two swords on.
Is there a benefit to two of the same? Because like if they're on say square and circle, like what's the difference between having two swords or just one sword and mashing square?
No difference really. So you only need to press the same button. I think it's a circle button twice. So whatever
Yeah.
orb is in front of you is the
throw them out
first
one after
attack.
the other.
Okay.
Yeah, so it depends on how you like your hitboxes and how you like timing. I tended to stick to the two of the same because I don't know, like I like the
nice.
consistency. It looks nice, yeah. The consistency of like the hitbox and the timing of the attacks. I could predict when they were going to hit and things like that.
Okay.
You also have 3 different sets, so you can swap between 3 different builds because you also have 2 things you can equip. So you have, I think one's a ring, which gives you a passive ability. So something like a shield or constant healing or quicker regen of magic, and then you have a necklace which allows you to use special attacks, so I guess like Portrait of Ruins kind of dual attacks and things like that. But it's really smooth and sweet, and but the other things I really liked about Time Spinner the maps are pretty good. They're not incredible. I think if I was going to do one thing, I would maybe have 2 slightly bigger, maybe different area maps because they do match up quite a bit. The underground sections in particular tend to match up almost identically, but there are some different things there. There's different enemies. Most of the story as well is told through collectibles. So you have journal entries to pick up, which are written by your mother. You have historical documents to pick up in the library to find out about the world. And then you have war notes about the war in the past. So there's different ways you can find out, and you piece things together. It can be a bit jarring sometimes because in the very few story cutscenes, one character can say something and Linnaeus will already know the answer. But other times you'll pick most things up. Everything's pretty easy and accessible to pick up, but it just kind of nailed it for me. Like, I don't really know. I love Metroidvania. Symphony of the Night is one of my all-time favorite games. And this just kind of
Mine
nailed it for
too.
me.
And I think that the indie game space also has many Symphony of the Night fans within it because there's a surprisingly surprisingly high number of pretty good Metroidvania indie games.
Yeah.
And this might be just one of the best ones though, because like everything I read about everything I read about this game was that mechanically it was super good. It felt very similar to Symphony of the Night, but in a way that was homage and not mimicry. And and also they were praising the different sort of character types and even character sexualities in the game.
Pretty gay Metroidvania, and I've got time for that. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm, sure.
Exactly. It does it really well as well. Like, it's all side content, and it's just part of them. Like,
Yeah,
one character. Yeah,
it's not a game about sexuality. It's a game that normalizes sexuality,
exactly.
and
Yeah,
in a way that is it isn't obtrusive.
it's like the first game I think I've played for years that's had really good representation.
Representation matters because when people that aren't used to representation see that representation, they celebrate it. There's 1,000 examples of it, and it you know it warms the cockles of my shriveled up Grinch heart every time. So, all right, Time Spinner again, a game that sounds super dope that I really want to get to eventually, but sadly couldn't in 2018. What else do we have to cross off still?
I think the only other really important one that we should talk about is Ni no Kuni 2.
I have one more beyond that, but
Mhm.
we can do Ni no Kuni 2 right now. Peter, I know you played that, but you didn't like it as much as the consensus, right?
I did not like it. No, which is a shame because I wanted to. It's
Did you like the first game?
no, I did not.
Okay.
Okay,
But I was
now,
also
so
really,
now okay.
I was also really disappointed by the first game. I feel like Ni no Kuni 2 is an overcorrection. It is by
Now,
far. It is.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second.
Yeah.
Now, please correct me if I'm wrong. The part of the plot of Ni no Kuni 2 is that the president of a nation gets transported to a fantasy world and fights in a suit and tie with a gun in this fantasy world.
Pretty
Yeah,
much,
so-
but you also
Okay, how
it
is that
starts off
not
with a
awesome? How is
like
not the game of the decade?
So this is how Ni no Kuni 2. Sorry, Alana.
No, you're going to do exactly what I'm going to do, so go ahead.
So Ni no Kuni 2 opens with the president of fake America is driving around and a nuke gets dropped on his city in the first minute. This happens.
Excellent.
Yeah.
As he is engulfed by the ensuing shockwave, he is transported to Ni no Kuni, to the
This is
world
already the
of
greatest isekai story of all time, but please continue.
and he is transported to this other world, and he is de-aged to the point that he is now a pretty anime boy, and
I'll allow it.
and he just so happens to appear in the bedchamber of Evan Pettywhisker Tildrum, real name OC Do Not Steal,
Best name.
who
I remembered that.
who is in the process of he's getting overthrown. He's a cat boy, and there is a
This game is already a 9 out of 10 and trending upward. So
the rats the mice are rising up against the mice are rising up against the cats, and at one point, in order to save Evan from an attacking mouse soldier, Roland pulls out a real ass Glock and shoots it in the face.
So
This-
how is
that
any of
sounds
this
so
disappointing?
confusing.
Because it is
It's so much better on paper.
it is a lot to take in.
I love it.
No, Ni no Kuni 1's problem was that the combat mechanics were bad and it wasn't fun, and it was also stupid hard for no reason.
Yeah,
Ni no Kuni-
it was a very beautiful game that its mechanics
Oh,
were
yeah.
so inscrutable to me.
Yeah.
I dropped that thing after 5 or 6 hours just because combat was a chore, even though drippy and a lot of the setting was delightful. But anyway, we're talking about the second one.
And Ni no Kuni 2's combat is better. It like objectively better. It's more real time and tailsy, where like you have like you like swing your weapon in real time. You can switch between weapons on the fly, stuff like that. But it's easier, possibly even too easy, because on the normal difficulty setting, after a couple battles, you're going to be breezing through these encounters before the enemy has a chance to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a shame because the combat system feels better to control, but you basically have to jack the difficulty up in order to get any use out of it.
Yeah.
And that was the problem. And like I said, I didn't think Ni no Kuni 2 was bad. I just fell off it. Like I was like after 5 hours, I was like, yeah, that's about it for me.
It's weird, isn't it? Because I also played it. I beat it, and I actually platinumed it. Although, to give
Nice.
credit, I played it with my
Alana,
mum.
the Platinum Princess of
Like the,
2018.
yeah,
I
the
know,
year
right?
of platinums for Alana.
I've had 6. I don't know how I've done it.
What?
Holy crap!
Whoa.
I think I have
had, like,
maybe
one
8.
ever.
I think I have like 7 or 8 ever.
Before this year, I had 2. I now have 6, or 7 or 8 on total. 3 of them were Spyro games, though.
No shame.
Yeah. Yeah, like I played it with my mom. She played most of it, and I just kind of did all the city building and
Mama Hagues, the secret power behind Alana's
I
throne.
know, right? Exactly. I wish not. Not though. But like I liked parts of it. I love the city building mechanic. So it's kind of for people who haven't played it. Did you get this far, Peter? I'm assuming not, because it's quite maybe.
I think I got to the point where you could start doing it, and that's
Yeah.
about when other games came out.
I think this. I think this is where it really excels. It's a kind of a bit like Dark Cloud 2, although you don't really have choice in where you can put buildings and things like that. So you can build your own kingdom and you can level up.
A clicker game.
Yeah, no, it reminds me of like the city building in Bravely Default, or an idle game where you have to like wait 30 minutes before you can finish building the blacksmith or something, or maybe even a little bit like a Suikoden game where you sort of build your main town as the game continues. But I thought this game had a pretty positive overall reception. Caitlin gave it a 90 in her review and loved the city building parts of it.
I loved it. It's probably my favorite part of the game. I really enjoyed it because you recruit 100 people to work in your kingdom. Some
Awesome.
of them like enhance your like weapons you can craft. Other ones enhance what items you can buy. Other ones pick up like gather items that you can trade for other things, and then other people
do the 100 each have a star assigned to them and appear on a stele in the middle of your castle?
I wish. I'm afraid they don't. Wrong
Aw,
podcast
rats.
episode. But yeah, I really love that aspect of it. I like the combat. I had problems with the camera. Like the camera felt really janky to me, but I do really like how much more fluid and faster it is. What I struggled with was the like entire 20-hour section in the middle. Like there doesn't seem to be anything that happens between the point where you get your own kingdom and then the point where you get back your home. Spoilers. But like
Sure.
it's just like I don't know, like you could basically the aim is that you go around and get all of these other kings to sign a treaty so you can rejoin together and get back your own kingdom and defeat big bad evil and whatever. But like it's just like chasing nothing most of the time. You're just like, I'm going to chase a lead. Oh, well, let's go this way and things like that.
So it feels a little sort of empty in the middle, going from plot point to plot point, and you think the game could have been a bit shorter? I don't mean to put words in your mouth.
No, you're right. But yeah, I struggled with the middle section a lot. But like the city building was fun. There's side quests along the way as well. Also like the character variation. I mean, there is a really cool mechanic lady with pink hair who I dig to hell. Oh my god.
Awesome.
Like the characters that you get, they all share weapons, so not all the same. Like there's pairing, so that every character has a primary weapon and a sub weapon. Most people share one sub weapon and one primary weapon. So Evan and Roland both use a sword as their primary weapon. They have different sub weapons in that Roland has a gun and Evan has a wand, but Bracken, who is the mechanic girl, has a gun as her sub weapon and then has a hammer as her primary weapon, but another character has a hammer. So there's like not really any unique gameplay going on between many of the characters. And also the first 3 characters you get are probably the best characters and the only characters you really need to use, I found. I didn't change my party up at all. So there wasn't really a lot going there. But I mean, it's a good game. Like it's definitely better than the first game, but I think yeah, I didn't really agree with all of the praise and felt that like I think I could have done with it a different time maybe. I think it's come out in the wrong year. I think maybe 2 years ago I would have loved it more, but I think now I'm a bit swamped and there was other things that I enjoyed a hell of a lot more.
Right. So Ni no Kuni 2, very good. It was well reviewed on our site, but maybe just a little bit lost in the shuffle of 2018, which ended up being a very dense year. There's a lot of games we didn't talk about. I'm looking at our big list: Assassin's Creed Odyssey, Detective Pikachu, God of War, Jimmy and the Pulsating Mass, which got a really high review recently on our site.
Assassin's Creed, another one. Fallout, another one.
And there's also multiple Yakuza games: Valkyria Chronicles 4. Xenoblade Chronicles big DLC. Oh yeah, Fist of the North Star. I sort of wedge Fist of the North Star in with the other Yakuza team stuff. There's many games on this list that we didn't talk about, and that just goes to show how strong 2018 was. There was I thought 2017 was too many games, and 2018 might be more too many games.
Only people who work at
to me.
game sites say stuff like that. Oh, there's too
Fair,
many
yeah.
games. Too much
Well,
to do.
I mean, we work at a game site,
Yeah.
but we're all volunteers, so there's too many games that we spend time covering and not just playing. It
Yeah.
would be easier to be an RPG fan, as it were, if I didn't have to work at RPG fan. But I love podcasting and I love the work that we all do, and I include the four of you with it as well. Like I think we did a great job in 2018, and we should be proud of all the work we did. But sometimes it makes video games feel exhausting, and we still love video games and RPGs in particular, but sometimes it feels like there's too many games. But before we get into closing arguments, I'm going to extend this podcast by another 15 minutes because I'm a monster. I have two questions I want to ask each of you, and I'll give my answers first to give you guys time to think, okay? The first question is, tell me one game that you're looking forward to in 2019. And even if it's not confirmed, announced worldwide, if you're reasonably sure it's going to come out in 2019, you can use that. And second, if you have one, please tell me your favorite episode of Retro Encounter that you recorded in 2018. So I'll give you guys some time. I sprung these on you as a surprise, so I'm not playing fair here. But for me, the game I'm looking forward to the most this year is. This is going to sound strange. I think it might be Persona Q2.
Okay.
It just came out in Japan in November, and I had a basically Persona-free 2018 because I binged hard on Persona 5. I played through it twice and got the Platinum Trophy in 2017. But it's been long enough that I think I want to hang out with the Phantom Thieves and the Execution Squad and the Investigation Team again. And Persona Q, I liked the first Persona Q a lot, and Q2 doesn't seem to have as good a soundtrack as the first one, which I thought was a great strength of Persona Q1. But I'm really excited for Persona Q2. I hope it comes out in 2019. It's not confirmed for a worldwide release yet, but I really want it to. And
it will.
and
Yeah.
and
Fine.
and the plot setup here is you go into a magical movie theater and get trapped in movie worlds, and I think the first two are a superhero movie world and a dinosaur attack movie world, and those are some Persona stages I would love to draw maps in. So it sounds great to me. And second, the Retro Encounter episodes I had the most fun recording. This probably isn't a surprise. I had so much fun playing Suikoden 2 in September.
Yes, that was
Yeah.
probably my favorite as well.
Yeah, I had tried Suikoden 1 and 3 before and never got very far, but this one I forced my way to get through a slowish beginning, and then once you get into the real core of Suikoden 2, it's excellent, and I'm really happy I finally got to play that, and it was really fun to discuss on the podcast with both of you, Leona and Alana. I accidentally combined your names for a second there.
Lana.
It's cool.
Liana.
We're too
Whoops.
powerful for this world.
Oh no.
Yeah, do a fusion dance. Ha! Rihanna.
So, does anyone else want to talk about a 2019 game they're looking forward to, and maybe a favorite episode of Retro from 2018?
Yes, I'm looking forward to Fire Emblem Three Houses.
Oh right.
Oh, yeah.
Damn.
I am pretty hyped about that. I'm super interested to see what they're going to change up. If they're going to change up things from the 3DS games, I hope so, because I wasn't a biggest fan of Fates, but as well as the Switch just being a great console, I'm super excited about to see what they're going to do with this.
A full 25% of our Fire Emblem episode a couple months ago was just ragging on Fates.
What it really was. It was great fun, though. I love that. It was actually, which leads me into what my favorite podcast. If it wasn't Suikoden 2,
Heyo.
it probably would have been the one we did on Fire Emblem, and we just roasted Fates for a good half hour.
Awesome. Anyone else want to come to the blackboard and try to solve the equation?
Yeah. I've come around on Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. I want to see what that is going to be.
Right. Is that the From Software one?
That's the From
Right.
Software Samurai Combat.
I don't know how it happened, but we're getting like 4 Samurai Combat games in 2019.
Somehow
Right.
we are. But in my heart of hearts, what I really can't wait to come out is Ooblets.
Oh, yeah. That looks so cute.
Ooblets
I've
is
seen-
so cool.
Hasn't that been at demos for like 2 years?
Maybe like 1 year.
Okay.
I saw it at EGX at the beginning of this year, and it's a Pokemon style game where like you're the new kid in town and you inherit a farm and you plant seeds and they grow into these little creatures called ooblets. And the build I played, it had like these sort of it had like Pokemon battles where like with like cute little moves like Snoot Boop, and you're like poking each other on the nose. And over the course of the year, they've determined that like it's not really fitting with like the mood that they're trying to cultivate with this game. So they've changed it to dance battles.
No,
Oh,
Snoopit or whatever it was.
Snoot Boop is pretty good, but like
I would play a
seeing a
Pokemon.
little mushroom man and a bear and a pair of jeans like breakdancing at each other, I'm all here for that.
I'm ready for that as well. That's just as good.
That
Yeah.
sounds great. And now I'm thinking of like Pokemon Street with dance battles.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm down. But the build I played, as early as it was incredibly satisfying and just joyous to have a little run around in. So like if you want like an earnest but kind of like Twitter humor take on Pokemon, Ooblets is gonna deliver, I do believe. And in terms of favorites that I've been on this year, I haven't been on a whole bunch of episodes this year. I've been trying to catch my breath with everything else I've been doing. However, I did have the honor of hosting the Mega Man Legends duology in September, which was a really nice excuse to replay. Well, I say replay. I mean play those games in English for the first time and experience them. And that was a real joy.
Cool. So Alana or Peter, do you have an interested upcoming game from 2019 or a favorite episode of Retro from 2018?
Kingdom Hearts 3,
Of
January.
course.
Okay,
I'm
sure.
I'm down. I'm excited. It looks great. Apparently, copies are in the wild already, so I got to keep my ears shut for spoilers.
Yeah, I saw
Oh,
that.
geez.
But yeah, I'm really looking forward to playing that. Everything we've seen of 3 so far looks amazing, and I'm really excited to see how this whole thing wraps up. And then for favorite retro episodes, I really love doing Shadow Hearts. That was a lot of fun.
So jealous. I love that game.
They were
So good.
they were fantastic.
I should probably go back and play that thing because it's not very long, and I really liked Shadow Hearts 2.
Yeah, for sure. It's
Mhm.
well worth it.
I agree.
Cool. So Alana, your turn. One upcoming game you're interested in, and one retro episode that you enjoyed.
I don't have one. I'll use the same one I used last year, although again, I don't think it's going to come out in 2019, even though it's been delayed again. Indivisible is just going into alpha.
Oh.
I really, really want it, but I think if it's going into alpha now, I think it's probably early 2020 more than anything. I'm going to cheat and say a non-RPG and say Devil May Cry 5 then.
Awesome.
Nice.
I'll allow it. I almost
Alana
said
makes
that
all
instead of Persona Q2.
But if we're going to go RPG, then I don't know how many days, 13, 14 days from this episode, Tales of Vesperia, it will be out
That's
again.
right. Yeah.
And I'm in there. I'm there every day. But I also haven't been on much retro this year, which sucks because I promised to be on more. But other than Suikoden 1 and 2, which I loved, I'm going to say the RPG World Tour episode, which was a delight.
That episode was a lot of fun to record. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a blast to learn about different worlds and talk about my favorite worlds because, I've got to get those Skies of Arcadia props in every episode I'm in, and I did it.
I feel like an idiot because when I listed a favorite podcast, I never mentioned the one that I actually hosted and organized, which was Golden Sun, and I feel like I should probably mention that I did that, and I really enjoyed it. And Keegan and Tress were great friends and supported me throughout that, and I'm so appreciative for them being so good on that podcast with me.
And I almost I don't know if it was my second favorite of the year, but Leona, you and I on the 999 podcast, just listening to Hillary and Trent react to the to the nonsense in that game.
Was it like Danganronpa all over again?
Yes,
Cool.
very similar.
I can't listen to those episodes though.
Nah, you gotta play through the game first. And the way to play through 999 is to play through it once cold and then check a guide to get the 2 story important endings.
Cool.
to finish it. But even playing it that way, that game is an experience. Oh boy, it was a lot of fun to
Yeah.
replay. And I'm this close to just starting up Virtue's Last Reward and making us podcast about that. So that
Making us, we're like begging on the podcast to like, can we
yeah,
do
yeah,
it?
yeah. I think it will happen. I don't know
It's the
exactly.
best one.
I don't know exactly
It is.
when, but I think there will be a Virtue's Last Reward episode in 2019. But I'm not prepared to say exactly when.
No.
But anyway, it is time to look ahead in the podcast. Next week we are going to have a Dragon Quest XI episode. We hinted at it earlier in this episode. We're just bringing a bunch of Dragon Quest fans together to talk spoilers about that game, and it's very selfish of me because I've been wanting to talk about that game on a podcast basically since the moment I finished it in early October.
I'm pretty sure I've had one DM a week saying, "You want to do one?" I'm like, "I haven't finished it yet." Like,
I've been, you're not the only person I've solicited that
I was gonna
that
say.
for. Yeah. But so there is going to be a Dragon Quest XI episode next week. And following that, we are having 2 episodes on Kingdom Hearts 1, which is a game that Peter, I think you're going to be very excited to talk about, and I'll be perhaps slightly less excited to talk about.
It'll be
I'm here for the emotional roller coaster.
it'll be fun. It'll be fun. I'm excited.
So yeah, 2 episodes on Kingdom Hearts 1 in January, and also in January, let's see, I think we're gonna do an episode that's not about RPGs at all.
Oh,
We're still that's still in the planning stage, but I'm pretty sure we're just gonna have an episode that's about everything besides RPGs. So please look forward to that. And also, listeners, if you want to contact us, the best way to do so is via email. Email retro@rpgfan.com. The rpgfan.com also has message boards, a Facebook page, a Discord server of which Leona is one of the moderators.
Yeah.
Something streaming on Twitch daily. 2 other podcasts, Random Encounter about current events and Rhythm Encounter about RPG fan music. And also a new Instagram page and a Twitter page. All of those things can be linked from the front page of rpgfan.com. And listeners, please review us on iTunes or Google Play or however you're finding us. We love feedback, and we read everything that is directed to us. But before we talk about our social media, I just want to thank everyone for listening to 53 full episodes of Retro Encounter over 2018. Whether you listen to just a handful of them, or all of them, or none of them, and this is your first Retro Encounter episode ever somehow. I really my favorite thing in the world is to talk about shared experiences, and video games are my favorite hobby. So naturally, I love talking about video games to people that share that enthusiasm. And I love the opportunity that RPG Fan affords me to host a podcast about them. And I am grateful to every listener, every other panelist, Brian, who edits half of the episodes, and everyone in RPG Fan that lets Retro Encounter be a thing. And I won't say all of the episodes are perfect, but I'm proud of the work that I do, and I'm very grateful to all 4 of you, Robert, Leona, Alana, Peter, for joining me on many episodes this year, and hopefully appear on many episodes in 2019 as well.
Definitely.
Yeah, we'll be there.
You can't get rid of me now. You've got me hooked.
Yeah, Leona, I bugged you about appearing on a podcast for several months before you relented to appear on those Lunar episodes, and now I can't keep you off podcasts practically.
Yeah, I wasn't sure it was for me, but then it turned out it was.
It turns out podcasting is just fun, and it's why I've recorded so many.
Actually, I think those episodes were my favorite of the year.
Oh,
It was
really
great.
good.
So thank you, listeners. Thank you, guests. Thanks, everyone. But how can listeners find my guests? Please share your contact information that you're comfortable sharing, starting with you, Peter.
If you're looking to reach me, you can hit me up at I Have Fury on Twitter, or email me, petert@rpgfan.com.
And Alana.
You can find me on Twitter at Alana Hagues, or you can find me on Discord at Diving Falcons.
Leona, your turn.
You can find me on Twitter at StarMongoose, and you can also join our Discord server where I moderate, and I'm also StarMongoose on there. And my phone number is 07... I'm kidding.
You're in the same country as me. I will shower you with lots of affection.
Oh, well, I'll give you my phone number later.
Fine.
I'm representing the soulless suburbs of the 703, as it were, right now. So, Rob, what's your social media presence like?
You can find me on Twitter at Misanthrobob, where I am currently expressing my abject horror at the idea of Hideo Kojima and Kanye West meeting.
Oh
Oh
boy,
God.
I did not appreciate Kanye West's return to Twitter a few days ago. That was not great.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah, who
appreciate it
does?
ever.
I appreciate a number of his albums, but not any of his social media presence. And Rob, you also have two fine podcasts that you host that I enjoy
Oh
very much
gosh.
whenever they release. Oh, come on, I like supporting my friends' works.
Thank you very much. I was hosting a queer games podcast for the bulk of this year called Misspent Youth. It's currently on hiatus. We'll probably reconvene sometime next year. But my main podcast, Misanthroplay, that I host with Alva Chua, is coming back this winter season. We've just had an episode on. We've had a game music episode go up, and had an episode on Red Dead 2 go up, and we're going to record our end of the year soon. So check us out on Twitter at Misanthroplay.
Now, really, that episode did have some Red Dead 2 stuff in it, but really it was about Mega Man X, or that's my memory of
Yes, it
that
was
episode.
just about Mega Man X, really.
Yep. Excellent.
Mhm.
Excellent with excellent with an
Maverick
uppercase X.
Hunter. He's a cowboy.
Sure. And okay, so I guess that about does it. My name is Mike Sollosi. You can find me on Twitter at The Real Monsoon, most of the time at Evoker for Dogs, other times I am Monsoon on RPG Fans forums and Monsoon Mike on the RPG Fan Discord. This has been Retro Encounter in 2018. Thank you, good night, and good luck.